Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of burnout and adrenal exhaustion, loss of a parent and sibling, menopause and hormonal imbalance, identity crisis, infertility discussion, emotional and spiritual trauma, grief, and loss. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion. Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I have a very special guest today with me. I have Dr. Mary Sanders. Dr. Mary Sanders, with a wealth of experience as a self-employed medical intuitive and chiropractor, she's deeply committed to guiding individuals on their journey of personal transformation. She focuses on helping people cultivate thriving health, happiness, and purpose through the powerful tools of energy medicine, spiritual embodiment, and meditation. Dr. Mary hosts the internationally acclaimed podcast Energy Medicine, which discusses everything related to aligning the mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Mary earned her doctorate in chiropractic from Logan College of Chiropractic in St. Louis, Missouri. She completed her certificate in positive psychology from the Whole Being Institute in Lenox, is that Massachusetts?
Massachusetts.
And studied under Dr. Tal Ben Shahar. In addition, she completed her master's in intuition medicine from the Academy of Intuition Medicine in Sausalito, California, and studied under Dr. Francesca McCartney. Those are quite the credentials, Mary. Thank you so much for being here with me today. How are you?
I'm well, and first I must say it's my honor to be with you today.
Yes, thank you. I think this is going to be a really great conversation. So we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and I would love for you to share how you got into this work and what kind of happened in your life to kind of lead you in this direction of helping others the way that you show up for them now. So you can go ahead and start from wherever you would like in your story.
Oh my goodness, that is an open question, but I'm willing to go there with you and the listeners. And let's see. So let's just start with the good stuff, the juicy stuff, the stuff that started the whole transformational process.
Yes.
And that is, as Tawny mentioned, I have been self-employed as a business owner since the ripe age of 25. Now, for those of you that have gone to any kind of technical training, they give you the tools and the skills to be good at what you do, but very few people receive the business skills in order to have a successful business. Now, I'm looking at Tawny right now. She's shaking her head yes. So I know that when she went to study to become a hairdresser in today's society, she didn't get an MBA along with that degree. So she had the School of Hard Knocks, just like I did. Now, so I was 25 and starting a practice in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And for those of you that are familiar with that area, this would have been 1994. And at that time, I had purple hair. And I had a kind of a little funky haircut. I just did not fit the norm as to what Colorado Springs expected of a young professional.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, when I started out, I was looking for funding to start my chiropractic businesses. I think I went to 12 different banks and I was declined at all 12 banks. So, I started my business in a back porch of an old Victorian on Weber Street. I paid $200 for my little, I don't think it was even 150 square feet.
Wow.
I had enough space to put a chiropractic table, a little buffet table, and a small little kitchen table that I used as a desk. And so that's how I started my business at the age of 25. 2 years after that, I was relocating into a facility that I think was approximately 1,500 square feet.
Okay.
And so then I built out this facility on Colorado Avenue, and then I started what was considered to be a wellness center. So I had various different practitioners alongside with chiropractic, acupuncturist, NLP practitioners, massage therapist. And so we started this little wellness center. And then things happened within my practice that I took over that whole facility and was a sole practitioner. And then lo and behold, then I would say 7 years later, I decided to expand again into a freestanding 5,000 square foot building.
Oh, wow.
At the same time, I franchised and opened up a second practice out in Falcon. So let's just say a lot happened very fast. And so as a business person, I tried everything. Some things stuck and were like mildly successful. Most everything flopped. But I had this sense of perseverance. Like I don't know who I was trying to prove what I could do, that I was capable and worthy of creating these practices. But I had this internal drive that just led me to, I don't know, it led me to creating something that when I looked up at the end result, I was like, is this it? Is this what I've been really working so hard toward? You mean
Mm.
this beautiful practice from the outside? It looked like I was successful and that I was happy and that I was busy and all these things on the outside perspective. But internally, Tawny, I
Mhm.
was miserable. I was getting up, I was leaving my house before the sun came up, and I was getting home after the sun had set every day.
Yeah, that's
And
a
I
lot of
was,
work.
oh, tremendous. And I was working for a huge overhead. I
Mm,
was working to sustain two practices,
yeah.
multiple doctors, a large staff. And literally, where was the joy in it? So
Mm.
I lost the original intention of what it is that I started off to do, and that was to be of service to other people, to help them in their healing journey.
So at that time, were you just running the businesses or were you still doing the like working with patients?
Yeah, I was still working with patients, running the business, and I was consulting other startup
Oh, wow.
businesses.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And so what was happening is I was going through a complete adrenal exhaustion. My health started to decline. I started to have hormonal issues. I started to feel completely depleted. I had no get up and go. And my whole metabolism was out of whack. I went through an early phase of menopause.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I really was not doing my physical body any services
Mm.
at all, at all. And so my relationships start to suffer. My husband, at one point in time, he just looked at me. I know you love what you do, and I get that you've worked very hard to where you are right now, but do you think, for the sake of your health, do you think that you could leave it behind?
Mm.
Do you think you could do something else? And at that time, I was so narrow focused that
Sure.
I did not have the capacity to see anything outside of the brick and mortar of my physical practice. And so, what was happening for my husband professionally at that time, he decided that he wanted to go into international education.
Okay.
So he was applying to be a headmaster or a principal at various different schools throughout the world. And as fate has it, he landed a position in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
Oh, wow. That's a big change.
That was a huge change. And he looked at me over dinner. He's, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They want me to start in 45 days.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, holy cow. So you want me, what we're setting the intention to do is to sell two practices, sell our home and our possessions, and get up, go relocate to Ho Chi Minh City,
Mm.
Vietnam.
That's
And
a
that's
big
exact.
ask.
That was a big ask, but I had to sit back and I was like, I'm miserable. I'm not going to
Mm.
do this for another 20 years. I'm just not going to do it. And so
Yeah.
what are my options? I've got to do something different. If you do the same thing you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got. It's
Yeah.
that old paradigm, and it's true. It's so true. So I took a risk, and we did just that. We moved to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And let me tell you, that was the beginning of some really intense healing for me.
So did you sell the practices or did you just walk away?
I sold the practices,
Okay.
but I sold them at a lot less than what I would have
Mm,
if I had more time. So
yeah,
it was an anticlimactic ending. So it was just tear the band-aid off and then just walk away.
that had to be
And
so hard as somebody
oh,
who had built that and felt so driven. And oh, I can't even imagine. You probably needed something as dramatic as that to pull you away from it.
absolutely. And that's how, if we're not creating it for ourselves, the universe has a really funny way of providing it for you.
Mm,
So the universe had been giving me signals, signal after signal. Hey, time for a change. Hey, your body. Hey, your relationships. And I kept ignoring them. And
mm,
finally, the universe says, this is my last signal. You got to do something different because otherwise it's going to be really dramatic. Whatever I present next is going to be really big. Yeah, I woke up in Ho Chi Minh City. Literally, we were on the other side of the world. And
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, who am I?
Mm,
Who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? Why am I still here? What's next?
yeah.
And those were big questions, right? And
Yeah.
this was right before, oh goodness. So how old would I have been? I would have been, I think, maybe 42 at the time.
Had you ever
Yeah.
done much traveling before that?
We had, but not like we were always tourists when we traveled. I only could afford to
Yeah,
be away from
sure.
my practices a week,
Hmm.
maybe 7 days. So it's not like it's completely different when you uproot and relocate and you're part
Sure.
of that community, let alone in Vietnam.
Yeah, I was thinking I've been to Vietnam and the culture, if you've just traveled US, Canada, Mexico, even Europe, to be thrown into an Asian culture like that, that's so different from what we have here in such a poor country, like that had to be a shock to the system in itself.
It was. My poor central nervous system had no idea how to regulate all of that information. I was already dysregulated. And then to add that on top of it, it was a very big culture shock. I don't know how else to say. And so literally, I sat there for about 30 days and I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable. I have to run away from Ho Chi Minh City. So that's what I did. I ran away to Bali, Indonesia. I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I was like, hey, I'm pretty close to Bali. Let's go check it out. And I had been practicing yoga since I was 21. And I was like, okay, so let's go do a YTT. Let's go get your yoga teacher training certificate and see what happened. Just deepen my own personal practice. And so that's what I did. I went to Bali, Indonesia, and that was the first time ever that I could like hear myself think. I
Mm,
slowed down. It was just myself. The way that it happened, I signed up late to this training. So I was not in the same facility in which all the other participants were. And this is another beautiful thing that the universe provided for me. Literally, they found me a small little motel room that was on the corner of what was considered to be the monkey forest.
oh
So
yeah.
I was saturated in the forest and I was
Oh,
living there by
beautiful.
myself. And so I just really, for the first time, I had time to take nice long naps,
Mm,
dinners by myself. I felt like I just practiced yoga, meditated, and slept for a month. And it was very healing. It was very rejuvenating.
yeah.
So that was Bali. And then I went back to Ho Chi Minh City and fell in love with meditation. And I was like, there's something to this.
Yeah. So did you just start doing that on your own or did you get
So,
into that?
my favorite part, it's always been my favorite part, the final shavasana. When you get to go into corpse pose after yoga, and when you can totally surrender into the mat, as short as it is, whether it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes, that was like my favorite part of the practice. And so I leaned into that more when I was in Bali. And then when I came home, I was like, I'm going to take some more meditation classes. I've got
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And I started taking more meditation classes and I was just witnessing because it was just experiential for me. I didn't have anybody to teach me really
Yeah.
how to do it. So I started to experience some really what to me were profound experiences.
Mm.
I was like, oh, wow. So what's really going on here? Because I know the body as a chiropractor really well from the neck on down, right? I know the central nervous system. I know the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic. I know all of that. But I was like, what's happening in my brain? What's going on what's the neuroscience? Like, what happens in the brain when you meditate? So that's what prompted me to go study under Dr. Talbin Shahar in upstate Lenox, Massachusetts. And at that time, Dr. Talbin Shahar was the kind of the leading researcher on the anatomy of what happens in the brain when you meditate.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to know all of this. And so here I am living in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I flew back to New York. I took a week training, came back to Ho Chi Minh, did some implementation online coursework, did that for probably about 10, maybe 12 months, went back to New York. And what was happening is that I was learning the principles and the tools of positive psychology. So, and Tall said, if you really want to make an impact in the world utilizing positive psychology, think about military, think about schools, and think about large government type bodies. And I was like, oh, well, okay, I'm far removed from the government and I don't really want to be in institutionalized with big organizations. So Eric, my husband, who is in education, he's let's take this content into the educational field and let's start implementing it into the schools in the United States.
Okay.
We started a nonprofit organization specifically to teach teachers the tools of positive psychology. My role specifically was teaching them meditation, mindfulness, appreciative inquiry. So we wanted the teachers to embody these principles so that they were good role models for the
Mm,
students.
yeah.
And that's what we did. But so what ended up happening, and again, I'm almost embarrassed to share these stories because it
Mm.
sounds like I was wandering. In many respects, I was wandering and just allowing the universe to provide whatever came next. But we left Ho Chi Minh City and we moved to Bogota, Colombia.
Oh,
So then we ended up taking this nonprofit organization through South America.
okay.
All right. Now, I don't know how to speak Spanish. I'm not fluent in Spanish. So as fast as I was creating the curriculum, it was being transcribed into Spanish.
Okay.
The program took off in Lima, Peru, and a
Okay.
large school group that had over 60 schools. And so Lima, they have the mindset that, hey, let's invest in the kid. Let's invest in the kid so that the next generation we can shift and up level kind of the status of what's happening within our country.
Yeah.
So they really, no pun intended, but they took this program and they embodied it. I was amazed. I was like, look at this. This is what it's designed for. And meanwhile, here I am trying to pitch this concept to the United States, and the United States is, we
Mm,
already know all of this. The teachers are overloaded. They don't want another program. We don't need
mm.
this. Our kids don't need it. But the mindset was different in South America. It took off. And I had a certain level of satisfaction with that. And we were there for a little less than 3 years. And then during that time, I was like, okay, I've created the program. It's out there in the world. They're digesting it. It's being integrated. I made a small little mark, but this still is not what I am destined to be doing. Now, meanwhile, Connie, I need to tell you that life is still happening, right? My
Sure.
mo my mother passed away, my
Mhm.
sister passed away.
Oh God.
So I was experiencing some personal things that I couldn't really make sense of, meaning that I knew that I have a physical body. I know that I have the mental body, what's happening in the neuroscience of my brain, but what's happening in the subtle energy field surrounding my physical body? Because I was feeling things that I couldn't really label as a direct result of my life experiences, traveling, the death of loved ones, maturing, hormonally changing of
Yeah.
what's happening to me. And so my husband was like, you've really always been, and this was true. It was just an observation from somebody. I needed the permission. As stupid as sounded, I needed the permission from my husband to be able to say, you know what, there's something that you've always wanted to do, but you've never done it. It may not make sense to you. To me, it didn't. I was like, how would I take energy medicine and intuition medicine and turn that into a business? Like, I could go and spend 2.5, 3 years studying this because I love this stuff, but how can how can I make a business out of this? Is this
Yeah.
money spent? So that's what I did. I enrolled in the Academy of Intuition Medicine, and I was tapping into some innate gifts that I've always had as a young person. So, Tawny, now I show up in my strengths. I know that I can hold space energetically for people in person or remotely who are looking for transformational healing,
Mm.
meaning they want to change the neurology of their physical body. They want to tap into potentials that they may not already have access to, utilizing chiropractic, positive psychology, and the tools of energy medicine. So, as a medical intuitive, that's what I help support people with.
So while you were learning all of this, you were going through your own healing as well, right? Like,
Absolutely.
do you remember some of the epiphanies you had as you were going through some of this stuff? Does anything like really stand out to you that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah. So, the concept of grounding was new to me. Okay. I knew intuitively I like to be outside. I love to hike. I love
Yeah.
to be connected to the earth. And when I was in Ho Chi Minh City, we didn't have a lot of that.
Mm.
Coming from Colorado, I was like, where are the mountains? Where can I hike? Where can I run outside?
Yeah.
What can I do? And you don't have that in Ho Chi
Mhm.
Minh City. You just don't. You're surrounded by cement. Yes, and there are some rice paddies and things like that on the outskirts, but for the most part, you're surrounded by scooters and people. During my training, I realized that intuitively that the connection with Mother Earth is so healing, so rejuvenating, and so necessary. And so I learned that kind of the hard way, but through intuition medicine, that we can set the intention. Energy follows thoughts and intentions. We can set the intention to deepen our awareness and connection into the earth energy. And I didn't realize this is the biggest aha. And listeners, please, I hope that you hear this and maybe you can feel the truth in what I'm about ready to say. And that is the frequency that the earth emanates is the most readily sustainable energy that we have as humans. And it is designed to support us, it's designed to nurture us, to
Mm.
love us, to caress us. Now, for those of us who are living in this modernized world,
Mm.
when we're in a fight or flight or freeze mode as the direct result of traumas or life conditioning, that's a deal breaker. That's like the deepest knowing that you can possibly have for your own personal healing.
Yeah. So that was the biggest one for you. Do you have a grounding mat and stuff? Do you do that stuff or do you just go outside?
I go outside and I set the intention to ground every day. So I'm very much connected. I feel and know that frequency, that slow rhythmic impulse, that nutrient dense brown liquid organic energy. And I set the intention to exchange with that energy throughout 24/7.
Mm.
And when I'm not connected with it, that's when I know more now when I'm not embodied, which is just as important as is figuring out how to embody
Mm.
that frequency.
Yeah. Amazing. You spoke a little bit about having an identity crisis. I think that's something that a lot of my listeners can resonate with because I think we go through a lot of different periods of an identity crisis. I think retirement is a huge one for people that we don't really recognize.
Mhm.
When you've worked for so long and then all of a sudden everybody wants to retire, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to be retired someday. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, wait, what do I actually do with my time now? And who am I and what do I like to do? I know I personally experienced that with my infertility because it was all of a sudden I had to figure out what does my life look like without children and not having kids and who am I and what do I like to do? Because I just thought I'd be a mom and take care of kids and that was going to be the thing. And so I'm sure you experienced that when you were had to leave your practices and move across the country. Will you talk a little bit about that process for you and maybe how you got through that too?
Yeah. I think identity crisis, there's so much wisdom that you just said out loud, Tawny. So I'm going to try and circle back to a couple of key things that you said. And so we think about identity crises being the end of one phase into another phase in our lives. Just like when I ran away from Colorado Springs and I ended up in Ho Chi Minh City, I literally didn't have a brick and mortar place to go to, a place that I could show up every day and contribute to the world. Okay. I thought that was my purpose, like my contribution. So when I didn't have that, I was just like, oh, okay, so I'm no longer really Dr. Mary. I don't really go to Safeway and everybody, I know 10 people at the checkout line. Or nobody, they don't know where to find me on a daily basis. I'm just destined to have my hands on people. So when I couldn't put a label on who I was, that scared me. That scared me, and it forced me into a place of discomfort, of leaning into the unknown. And I don't like sitting in the element of unknown. I'm more comfortable with it now. I am more comfortable with it. But to be honest with you, I don't think any human really is comfortable sitting with the unknowns.
I was going to say I think it's slightly terrifying to not know and then also to not have control over it. Some of that is control as well.
Yeah. And it's hugely ungrounding. So
Mm,
how can you expect to like physically manifest a new job or a new location or a new something when you can't even feel your feet on the earth because you're so stinking scared and you're fear driven.
hmm
And I say all of that because now, Tawny, I understand that all of those emotional issues are connected into the deepest energy center located within the pelvis.
mm,
Safety, security, identity all get stored within the deep recesses of the pelvis. Okay. Now you and I both agree that the trauma, dysregulation of the central nervous system, whether it's housed in the fascia or housed within the tissues of the pelvis, it gets stored. And so then that becomes the story or the paradigm in which you operate from.
mm.
And doesn't serve anybody. Absolutely does not serve anybody. Okay, so let's go back to your challenging times going through infertility. You have had an attachment to an identity of being a mother since however old you were. So that was like safe and secure. That was how you had planned on showing up in this world. That was your contribution. And then the universe, your body, whomever, God, whomever said, Tawny, we have a different plan for
Mhm.
you. So to let go of the attachment of that identity creates a crisis from within. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to be the beginning of a life experience. It doesn't have to be the ending of some transition. It can happen in the linear spectrum with a bell-shaped curve that connects those 2 points. Now, there is a discomfort, follow me here, in being a tweener.
Yeah,
I'm
very
somewhere in
much.
between. Yeah, I'm somewhere between here and there. Imagine being 13, 12, 13. Again, you're not a young person and you're not necessarily a teenager.
Yeah,
Okay.
my nephew is 12 years old right now and about to go into seventh grade. And I've had that conversation with my husband. I'm like, God, seventh and eighth graders are just, like, it's just such a weird time of life. They're so awkward because they're not, like you said, they're not kids anymore, but they're not quite teenagers yet. And they're definitely not adults. And it's just yeah, I totally get what you're saying there.
Or let's think about your mid 20s. You want to be an adult, but you're
Mm,
really financially still reliant on your parents, possibly. You're still trying to strike your independence, but you still care about other people's opinions. No different.
yeah.
Or how about perimenopause? What's
Mm.
that? That's a limbo time.
Yeah, that I've had a lot of conversations about that with women on this podcast. Like because I had somebody on here a little while ago we had a big conversation about menopause. And I was like, what is perimenopause? I'm before that still, but my mom's been told she's in it. A lot of my clients at work are told I'm like, when did this term become a thing? It's before, I guess, your period fully ends, right? Like where you're starting to have those hormonal changes, but you just haven't fully quit having your cycles.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's a really confusing time. Okay. So I think identity crises really sits on this idea that we just really can't put a label on how we are supposed to identify ourselves.
Mm.
And so we are so attached as Americans, we're so attached, no pun intended, to
The
being able to
labels.
put, yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I actually wrote that down while you were talking about it. I was going to go back to that because I think that says a lot. Our fear of not having that label says a lot about our conditioning too, of what we've been told to believe our entire lives. And it's a really interesting topic because, yeah, you'd think, no, I don't want any labels. I don't need any labels, but we don't feel comfortable with that.
no, then you live in the land of what ifs. You
That's a
live in
scary
the,
place to live.
yeah, what if? And the idea of infinite possibilities.
Yeah. Which sounds like it would be amazing, but it's terrifying. Like you think, oh my gosh, infinite possibilities. You can choose anything, go anywhere, do anything. But I think when you really dive deep into it, nobody actually wants that until
It's
they've done more
challenging.
healing on themselves.
Yeah, yeah. For me, as I sit here, having gone through bouts of healing, my healing journey will never be done, Tawny. It just won't. That's my choice. And so when I think about my philosophy is that we are electromagnetic beings, and that if we have any kind of distortions or patterns within our electromagnetic makeup, within our physical body and the space surrounding our physical body, then that's what we put out to our environment. And so the environment will receive us in a way with the energy that we're putting out.
Yeah.
So that's a big pill to swallow because that brings the accountability back to the individual, right?
Yeah. Which is also a hard thing for people to recognize, is to look at themselves and do the work. And then, unfortunately, I think a lot of us don't end up doing it until a little bit later in life. I know that I wish I would have started my healing journey a little bit earlier and have the knowledge I have now in my 20s or whatever. But also, I needed life things to happen in order to kickstart that. I never would have thought about it before that. So,
So
unfortunate.
very true. Yeah, no, so very true. So very true.
But it's true. We're all constantly a work in progress and we're all working on healing ourselves. I think I did have an idea at some point that I would be done with this at some point. But life keeps happening, right? And life throws things at you and the universe throws things at you, and then you have to work through that thing. So tell me about chakras. First, tell me what a chakra is and then how it's connected to our body and healing and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I love this question. And quite honestly, I could talk all day about the energy centers within our physical body. First and foremost, I operate from the principle or the foundation that we are electromagnetic beings. I've already said that.
Mhm.
So that, listeners, is the nugget that's the foundation in which you get to listen to my explanation of what energy centers are or chakras are. I fully acknowledge that some of you may struggle with this concept, and I appreciate you listening from an open mind. So that's the first thing that I want to share. And chakras and chakra anatomy is not new. It has been around for so many years. It's been part of the Vedic sciences and the yogic tradition for God knows how many years. And a chakra is literally just a wheel. It means a wheel. It's a vortex of energy. And these vortices have three primary functions. Number one, to receive information from our environment. Okay. I'm telling you, listeners, you're already doing some of this stuff. You just don't know what's happening energetically or the pathway within your energy system. So you constantly receive information from your environment. The second part of it is that you assimilate that information, and it's not conscious. This is something that bypasses the analytical prefrontal cortex of your brain. It happens energetically, intuitively, if you will. Then, as soon as you assimilate the information from the environment, the third step or the third responsibility of this energy system is to express your life force energy back out into the environment, your response. So you receive, assimilate, and express energy through your energy centers. Now, for the sake of today's conversation, I'll make reference to 7 major energy centers. There's so many more energy centers. I can't even begin to tell you the infinite number of energy centers. If you think about it, each acupuncture point is an energy center. So what I am making reference to are the 7 lower, larger energy centers that are most intimately connected into the physical body, specifically chakras number 1, 2, and 3. Now, Tawny, with your permission, if you want me to, I'm happy to give a brief overview, a 101 on the chakra system's location, overall themes, what they connect to. And
Yeah,
then,
sure. I think that would be really helpful.
okay. So when I make reference to the first energy center, it's located deep within the pelvic bowl. Okay. It's the one that's closest to the earth. So it's the slowest of all of the energy centers. Most often, people see it or it's been referred to with the color red. And I'll talk about colors in a moment because a color is just an expression of a light wavelength. And somewhere on a spectrum, you'll get the emanation of a color, but it has to do with the wavelength of the frequency of the energy center. So some of the main themes, and we've talked about this, we brushed upon it. We talked about survival being the top theme of the first energy center. So it's survival, how you show up in the world, how you connect with your purpose, what's your placement within the family, your ability to provide for yourself above and beyond the basic needs.
Okay.
That's all that the first energy center is all about. But underneath it, you're going to get, oh, wow, all right, identity. You're going to get abandonment issues. You're going to get stability issues. So if somebody was possibly gone through a bankruptcy, divorce, or raised by a single parent, or those kind of themes, those traumas can get stored within these energy centers. So the first energy center is most connected into the adrenal system. And the adrenals, listeners, they're just tiny little glands that sit on top of the kidneys. They're responsible for your reaction to your environment, stress, essentially. So are you going to fight or flee or freeze? Or are you going to, that's the primary hormones, your adrenaline, your epinephrine, your norepinephrine, your DHEA, cortisol, all those hormones come from the adrenal system. So that's the first energy center.
Okay.
Now, a lot of information. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, again, I'm gonna speed this process up. So I'll talk about location, overarching theme in endocrine system. The second energy center, which is most notably known as connection with your creativity. That sits below your belly button. It gets connected to your ovaries or your reproductive organs. Okay. So again, I know that your history talking about infertility. Oftentimes you find that's connected or stored within the second energy center. And so that's a person's ability to be able to connect into their deepest desires. Also, the energy center where we hold other people's emotions. Now, I know Tawny is, oh my goodness, because is she reading me or what's happening here? And Tawny, I know that you stand behind the chair and you listen to people talk all day long.
Yep.
And when they talk, they exude emotions. And so your desire in your skillful profession is to create the opportunity for somebody to leave your salon feeling better.
Yeah.
Just like I did in my chiropractic office.
Yes.
So I took on so many other people's emotions
Mm.
that I could no longer identify what was my own.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That happens. That happened in the second energy center. So that's something to consider. The third energy center, located in the upper abdomen, just underneath your ribs, is the site for, it's also known as your solar plexus. This energy center is all about autonomy,
Mm.
sovereignty. What makes Tawny Tawny?
Still
Okay.
figuring that out.
Still figuring that out. And you're figuring it out because you've been influenced by other people who said, I think Tawny should be like this. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where people tap into self-confidence, self-worth. Those are the primary energy, the emotions behind this energy system. And that gets connected into the pancreas. And
Okay.
so the pancreas can also be involved in this energy center, your ability to metabolize sugar. The fourth energy center is located in the behind the sternum, behind your breastbone. And most people are like, I know the fourth, I know the fourth. The fourth is it's about the heart, it's about love. And really, I'm going to take it one step further and say, yes, it is about love, but it's about holding a compassionate space for yourself primarily and for others as well. So when you bump up against forgiveness or the inability to forgive, that's within the space of the fourth chakra. Also, you bump into perfectionism there. Okay. That's a big word, listeners. I know I'm just going to fly right over it, but we all go there. We all think that perfectionism is in the end all. And I'm here to tell you that it's overrated. It's totally overrated. We could spend another conversation on that, but we won't. And that's connected to the thymus. The thymus is an endocrine gland that is active up until about the age of 18. It's primarily connected into white blood cells, your ability to fight infections. That's within the fourth energy center. And the fourth energy center is really unique because it's a bridge. It bridges the chakras number 1, 2, and 3, which are all physically related to your physical body. And then the transitional segment of the fourth connects you into more spiritual domains within the energy centers of 5, 6, and 7, which we are heading into. So the fifth chakra, located in the throat, is often associated with authentic expression. Okay. So that's how you show up utilizing your creativity. So creativity for everyone is different, right? Some people like to write, some people like to dance, some people like to paint.
Yeah.
However, creativity shows up, your fifth chakra is all about expressing that to its fullest potential. Okay. That's hard. That's
Yeah.
super hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it gets connected into the thyroid. And the thyroid obviously has to do with your metabolism. And so often women have an underactive thyroid known as hypothyroidism. And quite honestly, that's common within the space of a dysfunction of being raised in a critical environment, never being able to be granted the liberty to utilize saying, hey, here I am into the world and being accepted for that.
Yeah.
So the sixth energy center is also known as the third eye. It sits in the center of the forehead, and it is most intimately connected with the pineal gland, which is like my favorite endocrine gland of ever. And for those of you listening, you're like, I'm not sure I know what the pineal is. And the pineal gland is about the size of your pinky fingernail.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it's tiny. And it's shaped like a baby little pine cone.
Okay.
So imagine the pine cone, right, has all these layers to it. And so this little pine cone, the pineal, sits in the center of your brain.
Okay.
And they are using it in today's world. The pineal is responsible for your light, dark sleep cycle. So you have your associated with melatonin, tryptophan, things of that nature, but it's also connected into consciousness. So the sixth center is all about being able to see clearly, to see the truth. And when somebody, somebody that stands behind the chair, when somebody's sharing the truth or expressing a true side of themselves, that comes up. And
Yeah.
you can see that. So then on top of the head is the seventh energy center, and that's what connects you into all that exists outside of your physical body. And so that's the spiritual domain of whatever your belief system is, as long as you are striving to connect with something outside of yourself that's bigger than yourself. That's where the energy of the seventh chakra comes from. And it's connected into the pituitary gland, which is essentially the regulating hormone of the mother of all the regulation within your endocrine system. I guess the reason that I share, Tawny, the connection between the chakra systems in the endocrine glands is to show you that the electromagnetic current that surrounds you and penetrates you can and does have the power to change your hormones. And that's the primary focus of the endocrine gland are your hormones. So above and beyond just your reproductive hormones. So there is an intimate connection between the electromagnetic field and the physical body. You can't separate them. Are part of the whole.
As women, we know that our hormones control everything.
They
Men,
sure do.
I say it all the time. Men just don't know how good they have it. So like, they have their own issues. All the things we have to deal with our hormones throughout our entire lives, it controls everything. So it would make sense that it's all tied together. So if somebody has had some type of trauma or experience that is a struggle that gets stuck in one of those chakras, how do you work through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that very rarely does one chakra just show up.
True.
Okay, so it's going to be a pair, a combination. It's going to be an alchemical process that's unique to you. But once you start leaning into the idea that, hey, I recognize these patterns. I recognize my defense system that I've ran throughout my entire life, or my limiting belief systems based upon trauma. That, again, trauma can be small t, it can be repetitive verbal abuse, or it can be a big T trauma, which is something invasive, motor vehicle accident, sickness, infertility, unfortunately. Those are big T traumas. And so they get stored within our physical tissues and within our neurology. And so when we say enough is enough, I'm ready to A, identify if you can't identify, or B, I'm ready to process and release this stuff. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to relive the trauma, but you get to tap into the response of that trauma. Okay. So once we can create the stage, an environment in which you feel safe and supported, and then we can energetically support you to where you can connect into that space and work through and to change the programming that's within your physical tissue. Yeah, I know.
Which is a different type of therapy, right? I don't know. I've said this on the podcast before. I really struggled with like in-person therapy, and I found the energetic side of things a lot more helpful in working through my own stuff, because I'm a pretty open book and I'll talk to my friends, I'll talk to my family. And I felt like I was going to a therapist and just talking, and I'm like, I can do this with my mom. Like, it's fine. But the energetic stuff and working through a lot of that actually physically and mentally, I found a lot more healing than just talking to a therapist personally.
Yeah. So you shared with me that you're a runner, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a very casual runner, but yes.
but there's something that happens physiologically after you run. There are hormones, there are chemicals that surge through your physical body. And you, over time, have learned that you feel better after having those chemicals introduced into your physical system. So I guess the reason that I'm saying this, Tawny, is that if we listen, okay, if we listen close enough, our body will tell us.
Yeah.
And what's so ironic is that 80% of the neurological information from our body goes up to the central nervous system for it to be integrated. It's not the brain down, it's the body up. So if we're not dealing with what is stored within the physical body, we are missing a huge chunk of a healing opportunity. But it's so counterintuitive, meaning that if in a guided state, you're like, oh my goodness, I am so tight. I am so contracted. I am so uncomfortable in this area of my body. And then somebody like me says, oh, yeah, what would your body tell you? What's your body telling you? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it's saying. And I'm like, if you did know, what would your body be communicating? I don't know. It would say something about this. And then it starts to unravel. But it's so counterintuitive to lean into the area of constriction, of tightness, of contraction, to then ask the body what it needs in order to release.
Yeah. So what would you do to release that? It's probably all different for each individual person, right?
That's true. But just being recognized, just the body given a voice,
Yeah.
that's the first step of, oh, wow, okay, so she really does see me. She really is connected to me. So maybe there's an opportunity after all in order to release all this energy. It is it's so transformative that when I witness it, it's sacred.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I just witnessed this.
How rewarding too for you to help people work through that stuff and just better themselves and their lives and be happier. And I've said that a lot about doing hair. Like, I just love making women feel good and build their confidence, and their hair and their looks is a huge part of that. I love that you do that for people.
Yeah, I do it because it's in alignment with the trillions of the cells that I have within my physical body. Like, I know without a doubt that I stand for personal healing and transformation, and I will support others in that journey. That's what I committed to do, to being a spirit embodied in a human home this lifetime.
That's amazing. So if somebody comes to work with you, seeks you out, how do you usually start that process out?
I think that it's interesting how this happens. The people that like, okay, so there may be one or two people listening today going, wow, she's interesting. I'm not sure what she does, but maybe, goodness, I've tried these talk therapies, maybe, and I have been listening to my body. My body is in pain, and I don't know, should I just talk to her? And then what ends up happening is that I offer up the idea of doing just a discovery call. If you're one of those people like, I don't know, maybe, then let's connect. Because what ends up happening is that you will intuitively know, you will get a resounding, yes, I want to work with this person, or no, I totally do not want to work with this person. And so if it's a resounding no, then trust that I'm going to do everything within my power to find you somebody that you do connect with. It's no different than doing hair. You can have somebody show up as a new client and sit in your chair, and you're going to know if it's a good match, and they're going to know if it's a good match. If it's not a good match, then everybody just goes about their merry little way. And so what ends up happening is that things undergo, and I hold space with the intention of healing at the pace that the other individual and their spirit can tolerate. There's a saturation point.
Yeah.
I will never my intention is to always be of service to the other person, to their highest good at all times. And so that means I never want to create a healing crisis. That's not fun.
No.
That's not fun for anybody. So it's a gradual process based upon the conditions of the individual that presents to themselves.
Yeah. Presumably, if people are seeking you out, they've probably already decided they want to go on that journey. Do you find that with some of the people you've worked with, you've had to really work hard to pull things from them? Or is it mostly if you have to do that, it's because they haven't fully recognized it themselves? Or
Yeah, most people that reach out are primed. They're primed, ready, and willing to do the work because they are experiencing a certain amount of discomfort. Pain or discomfort motivates people.
yeah. Yeah. Is it usually people, do they reach out if they're having a physical pain and they don't even have any idea they've gone through trauma or they've had to process that, or they just like, hey, something hurts, help me work through this. And then you get deeper into that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what happens. Like, for example, is a hip pain just a hip pain?
Mm.
Is a knee pain just a knee pain? So there's going to be, is it always going to be musculoskeletal? No, we are so beautifully complex that it's going to be multifaceted.
Yeah.
So yes, there's going to be a musculoskeletal neurological component to those hip or knee pains, but there's chances are going to be an emotional component to it as well and an energetic component. It's a very integrative approach. It's not just, it's all of the systems combined.
Yeah. So do you usually treat physical and energetic, or are you mostly focused on the energetic?
That's a good question. I treat people in person and remotely.
Mhm.
And so I can hold space for people remotely and they see physical changes.
Okay.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you can do a little bit of both. And then is there, obviously this is individual as well, but is there a certain time period that usually works for people? Or is that just where like I said earlier, I believe that we're all still always working on stuff. But if somebody comes to you with knee pain and you work through that and they feel better, do they move on their merry way, or does more stuff start to come up in the meantime?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of both. And
Yeah.
so the reason that I say that is because the physical body is the most dense of all the energetic systems that we have available to us. The physical body is typically the last to change.
Oh,
Okay. So you may see energetic changes, you may see emotional differences before you see, and chemical differences before you see, hey, the pain is gone.
yeah.
And sometimes it's like it's fast. So it depends on the complexity, depends on the origin or the depth of what the origination of that pain pattern is.
Yeah. So interesting. I bet you've had some very interesting clients and journeys with them that I don't know. I bet you have stories for days on that stuff because I just think it would be so interesting to do that.
It is fascinating to me. And hopefully, listeners, you can hear in the tone of my voice, I take it very seriously and to hold sacred space for somebody in their healing journey.
Yeah. And are you finding that you mentioned before that the US was a little bit shut off to some of these ideas and stuff? Are you finding nowadays that people are more open to it than they used to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because they've gone down the medical pathway and they haven't gotten the results that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so they're searching and they know more and more people are like, you know what? I have the ability to heal myself. And why isn't my body healing? And
Yeah.
so they're seeking out modalities that can help support them in a way that's non-invasive and doesn't include pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah. Our bodies truly are amazing. And I think we're probably just starting to tap into what that looks like because we
Yeah.
didn't look there before.
Oh, Tawny, if I had $1 for every time I said the human body never ceases to amaze me, I
Mm.
probably my retirement would look a lot bigger. Um,
Yeah.
it would. And so
Yeah.
then also there was another point that I wanted to make, and that is I lost my train of thought. I'm so very sorry. You were
Oh.
talking.
Just about how amazing the body is and
Oh,
people. Yeah.
the healing on a quantum level, quantum science, again, is not new, but it is new since I've been to school. So I'm going and getting additional training on quantum biology. What does that look like? Quantum neurology, how does that look like? We
Mm.
are, as scientists and as in the healing profession, we're getting down to the quantum level.
Mm.
And that has changed just in the last 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, we just have so much more to learn always. And yeah, when you think about even just thinking about your body healing a wound, like a open wound, a cut, a scratch, or whatever, like the ability to do that is incredible. That our cells can do that. And then it's always just working to keep us alive. And I think we take that for granted a lot.
I hope not.
I mean, I'll say that I didn't start paying attention to my physical body until I started going through infertility, and I was forced to pay closer attention to all the things. And I don't think I really realized how amazing it was until I had to start doing that. And like you said, paying attention is the first step, right? It's just listening and paying attention. But if you've never done that, then I think people are like, wait, what?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. But all right, Mary, this has been a lovely conversation. And I think that my listeners probably have learned so much from all of this. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, and all the things. We will link how to get a hold of you and work with you in the show notes. But do you have any parting words for my listeners? Any last thoughts?
I guess that you are worth the effort of the healing.
Mm.
Sometimes it can be so overwhelming that you don't know the first step to take. But just know that there's no wrong first step. Just make that first step because you're totally worth it.
Oh, I love that. That was really good. Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. Thanks for being on here. I really appreciate everybody that comes on and shares their stories. I know that's not always an easy thing. So thank you for all of that. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.